In this lesson, we are going to learn about benchmarking for our projects. Open the sample workbook from recent workbooks and then click the S2 Diagnostics tab. Click Fuse to view the analysis details. Now please note that you will need an internet connection for this option to function. In addition, you will need to have opted in when you set up your initial Acumen Fuse options. To opt in, click on the Fuse icon at the top left, then select Deltek Acumen Options. Click About Deltek Acumen, and at the bottom of the window you will see an online option for Opt-in to enable the benefits of anonymous benchmarking. Select this option, then click OK to close the window. You will see that a tab for S2 benchmarking is now available. Make sure that you are connected to the internet. Then click on the S2 benchmarking tab to bring up the benchmarking window. Then click on the initial plan in the left-hand projects pane. For now, click the button in the top left for Fuse Schedule Index. Now, how does Acumen Fuse benchmarking work? Firstly, you should note that benchmarking our projects differs from the earlier lesson on benchmark analysis within the S2 Fuse Diagnostics. When you select the S2 benchmarking tab, you will be able to compare an individual score result against thousands of similar results in the Acumen Cloud. Score results from the Fuse Schedule Index and Fuse Logic Index are compared with all industries in the cloud database. By default, the selected score is compared against all the scores for all of the industries in the database. A more targeted comparison can be gained by selecting a specific industry from the pull-down menu. Note, when you conduct a benchmark comparison analysis, only the results are sent to the Acumen Cloud and not the project data. On the left of the top menu, you will see two options for your cloud-based metric group. The first option is the Fuse Schedule Index. This analysis gives an index and the percentile versus database and a probability of success based on the schedule index and the individual metric percentiles. The second option is the Fuse Logic Index. This gives an index, percentile, and the individual metric percentiles. Next, we can choose the characteristics for our benchmarking comparison. The drop-down allows us to select the industry that we want to compare our project to for benchmarking. For example, we could select mining if we were analyzing a mining project. If you select uncategorized, your project will be compared with all projects. Lastly, we have the Edit group in the top menu. We have Copy to Clipboard. With this command, we can copy the Fuse Schedule Index and metrics to the clipboard so that we can paste it into another application. The next button is Refresh Libraries. The Acumen libraries are dynamic and the information can change. Therefore, we would select this option to load the metric libraries used for benchmarking from the cloud to make sure that local copies are synchronized. Next, we have Include Exclusions. On the S1 Projects tab, you can choose to exclude projects from analysis by deselecting the checkbox next to each project in the Projects pane. You would select the Include Exclusions command to include all excluded projects in the benchmark analysis. Lastly, we have Refresh Analysis. If you click this command, you will reanalyze all of the information. So you would do this if you have changed a setting or refreshed the libraries. Below the top menu, you will see three panes. The left pane is the Projects pane, and this is where you will select the projects to be analyzed. You can select a workbook, project, snapshot, or scenario to be analyzed. The central pane is where you will display the graphical results for either the Fuse Schedule Index or the Fuse Logic Index. The results for your analysis will be displayed across the top of this pane, and you will note that your results will also appear against the graph. The right-hand pane displays the metric percentile analysis. This will display each of the metric scores for your project. It will also display how each metric ranks against the rest of the population for a similar project. This can give you a very good idea where problems exist when you receive a poor index score. Now let's go back and have a look at the Fuse Schedule Index and the Fuse Logic Index in more detail. Firstly, the Fuse Schedule Index. The Fuse Schedule Index is based upon 9 core metrics that contribute to the quality of a plan. Each of these metrics is weighted according to their importance to quality. The 9 Fuse Schedule Index metrics are missing logic, logic density, critical, hard constraints, negative float, insufficient detail, number of lags, number of leads, and merge hotspot. Now let's look at the Fuse Logic Index. The Fuse Logic Index is a cloud-based metric library that contributes to the logic quality of a schedule. Robust logic is one of the most important aspects of any schedule. So the 7 Fuse Logic Index metrics are redundancy index, open ends, open starts, open finishes, leads, also known as a negative lag, lags, start to finish links. A high number of start to finish or SF links is indicative of a well-developed plan. However, I should mention that the start to finish links are generally regarded negatively in the planning world. Now, what does an Acumen Cloud analysis actually do? It generates a result for scoring, benchmarking, and forecasting. Firstly, scoring is based on a standard set of metrics that cannot be edited in any way by an end user. The target Fuse index score should be 75 and above. Next, we have benchmarking, which automatically calculates where in the population your project lies. This is displayed as a percentile and compares how your project ranks with other similar projects. Lastly, we have forecasting. This compares your project score to other completed projects with a similar score and examines how they fared in regard to on-time completion. So let's work through an example. Select the S2 Benchmarking tab. Then select the 6-month update in the left pane. From the top menu, select the Fuse Schedule Index library from the cloud-based metric libraries. Firstly, we'll determine the Fuse Schedule Index score. You'll see that it is 27 and it is displayed at the top of the analysis pane. Next, you will see that the project ranks in the 12th percentile. Not very good. Lastly, you'll note that the project only has a 13% probability of success for schedule quality. Remember that your results may not match these results exactly, because the data in the Acumen Cloud changes as more data is added. Now let's have a look at percentile metric analysis in the right-hand pane. We're going to determine where the project ranks for critical activities. If you look at the red indicator, you will see that the project ranks around the 8th percentile. Hover your mouse over the indicator and it will confirm the 8th percentile. Now, as a second part to this example, select the Fuse Logic Index library button. We'll look at the Fuse Logic Index score. It is 55 and is displayed at the top of the analysis pane. Next, you will see that the project ranks in the 5th percentile. Not good at all. So, from these results, you can determine that work has to be done to improve the quality of the schedule to make it compare favorably with other similar global projects. We don't need to save our workbook, so simply close it and do not save it. Let's work through a benchmarking exercise. In this exercise, we're going to import my workbook. Then we are going to create a cleanse schedule so that we can compare the characteristics of the two schedules in the benchmarking mode. From the Acumen icon on the top left, open My Workbook from recent projects. Then in the S1 Projects tab, highlight Current Schedule from the left-hand pane. Then click the button for Cleanse Schedule. In the Schedule Cleanser window, remove redundant logic, hard constraints, soft constraints, remaining leads and remaining lags. Make sure that all remaining lags are converted to activities. Then click OK, and you will note that our scenario for current schedule has been created in the left-hand pane. Now we are going to compare our two projects for current schedule. So click the tab for S2 Benchmarking. In the left pane, highlight the current schedule. In the Characteristics group, choose Oil and Gas from the drop-down menu. Then click the button for Fuse Schedule Index in the top menu. What is the Fuse Schedule Index score for the current schedule? The answer? The Fuse Schedule Index score is 23. It is low. What is the subsequent Fuse Schedule Percentile ranking? The answer? 9th percentile. Low. What is the current schedule's probability of success for an on-time completion? Answer, 10%, low. From the results in the right-hand pane, what is the percentage of activities with hard constraints? The answer, 7% of activities have hard constraints. Next, click on the button for Fuse Logic Index. What is the Fuse Logic Index score? Answer, the score is 53. Where does the current schedule rank for logic quality based on the Fuse Logic Index score of 53? The answer, 5th percentile, very low. In the right-hand pane, where does the current schedule rank for lags? Answer, hover your mouse over lags. The answer is 2nd percentile for lags. Now let's have a look at our cleanse schedule. So in the S2 Benchmarking tab, highlight the scenario for current schedule. Select Oil and Gas from the Characteristics drop-down. Then click the button for Fuse Schedule Index. What is the probability of success for the scenario? Answer, 71%. Much better. Looking at the results in the right-hand pane, are there any criteria where improvements could be made? Answer, yes. Missing logic, critical activities and number of lags. Now click the button for Fuse Logic Index. What is the Fuse Logic Index for the current schedule scenario? Answer, 82. Much improved. What is the Fuse Logic ranking? Answer, 72nd percentile. Much improved. Where does the scenario rank for lags? Answer, 33rd percentile, so this has improved. If you look at the results in the right-hand pane, you will note that a number of improvements could still be made to the schedule. We don't need to save our workbook, so simply close it and do not save it. In the next lesson, we will introduce metrics. In this lesson, we will introduce Acumen metrics and learn how they work. Click the Metrics tab to open the Metrics window. So what is a metric? A metric is a standard or measure that is used to determine how well a project schedule is planned. Metrics contain formulas, weightings, and tripwire thresholds. Formulas are used to calculate the results of an analysis using the same syntax as Microsoft Excel. Tripwires flag and filter activities that exceed a certain threshold. So the composition of a metric consists of 4 parts. Primary formula, usually a number or count. Secondary formula, usually a percentage. Tripwire formula, this returns a set of activities in the activity browser. And tripwire threshold, this triggers a color change, i.e. traffic light indicator. Acumen uses metric libraries to group metrics for project analysis. An extensive metric library is included within the whole Acumen suite. These metrics can be organized by categories or project requirements. So, by organizing your metrics, you are able to customize your project analysis. Finally, we have the Acumen Metric Editor. The editor provides us with a means of simplifying metric developments by reducing the number of times a metric formula needs to be written. The editor also provides us with a means of designing and writing custom metrics for use in a project. Now let's navigate our way around the metrics workspace. Across the top, we have our main menu. There are 5 groups of buttons. On the left, we have the metrics group. We can create a new group in the metrics pane, create a new metric in the metrics pane, sync groups across all metrics. This won't affect our metrics. Create a new subgroup within a selected group, and delete a group, metric or subgroup. Once we have created a metric or group, it can be dragged interactively into a new position in the metric list. For example, select the schedule quality group. Then click on the button for new subgroup. You'll see group 1 appear within the schedule quality group. Drag the new group so that it is located just under S-curves. You'll see that it is now a standalone group heading. Highlight and delete group 1. Next, in the clipboard group, we can cut, copy or paste groups, new groups or metrics within the metrics or editor panes. Let's have a look at the functional libraries group. This group contains all of the Microsoft Excel formula groups that can be used for creating metrics. Next, we have the tripwire thresholds group. Note that the option buttons will be grayed out unless a metric is selected. So, select the metric for missing logic in the metrics pane to view the buttons. Click on the drop-down for color scales. This is where you can set your color scale for your metric. We have lower is better. This creates a scale where the lowest values are preferable. You can select 2, 3 or 4 intervals for the scale. Then we have higher is better. This creates a scale where the highest values are preferable. You can select 2, 3 or 4 intervals. Then the ideal value. This creates a scale where the middle values are preferable. So select 3, 5 or 7 intervals. We'll discuss these different color levels in more detail a little later in this lesson. Next, there is a button to create a new tripwire threshold, as well as a button to delete a tripwire threshold. The next button is Use Gradient. This allows us to create a gradient fill to highlight any activities that have exceeded the tripwire threshold being edited. The color button in this group allows us to select a specific color for the tripwire threshold from the color palette. Lastly, the Open button in the Import group allows us to select a saved metric library to import into our workbook. Now let's move on to the workspace. The workspace really consists of 2 panes. The pane on the left is used to display the selected metrics, variables or project variables. By default, it will open with the available metrics displayed as 4 metric groups: Schedule Quality, Advanced, Industry Standards, and S-curves. At the top right of the metrics pane, you will see a double arrow. If you click it, you will minimize the pane. Click it again to maximize the pane. Each of these metric groups can contain subgroups and metrics. So expand the Advanced group. You'll see that it expands to show all of its subgroups. Expand the durations subgroup, and you'll now see a list of the metrics within the durations subgroup. Minimize the advanced group again. Now at the bottom of the left-hand pane, you'll see that we have three options that we can select to display information in the top pane: metrics, variables, and project variables. There are other options that are currently grayed out. They are disabled because Cobra is disabled and is not in the scope of this course. Currently, we are using the option for metrics. So, what is the difference between variables and project variables? Variables have one value for an entire workbook. They're used in filters only, and they have no specific data type. Project variables have variables defined for each project and snapshot. They are used in both filters and advanced formulas. Then you define the data type, e.g. number, text, date, etc. We will discuss variables in a later lesson. Now let's look at the Acumen metric editor pane. First we'll look at group weightings. So in the metrics pane, select the schedule quality group. Then in the editor pane, you'll see three fields where you can insert a name, description, and remarks for the selected group. Just below, you'll note that there are sliders for each of the metrics included in the schedule quality group. For each individual metric, you are able to set the metric's weighting between bad, neutral, and good by means of a slider. Ranges are from -10 for bad, 0 for neutral, and +10 for good. Remember, schedule quality is part of the built-in library, so don't change the slider settings. Now, click on a metric, say missing logic. Across the top of the editor pane is the information panel. You'll see the name field at the top. This will be the name of your metric. There is also a field for ID. Next, we have the description field. In this field, you can provide a brief description of the metric. Thirdly, there is the remarks field. Here you will provide more details associated with the metric, as well as possible impacts or risks. On the fourth row, we can select our metric type. It can be activity count. This tells us that the metric result is a count of occurrences in activities. Then activity attribute. This tells us that the metric result is an activity attribute. Then ribbon count. This tells us that the metric result is a count of occurrences in a ribbon, or ribbon attribute. This tells us that the metric result is a ribbon attribute. These metric type settings identify what the metric is used for, and they will be shown in the Acumen Diagnostics Executive Briefing Report. Next, we have a number of options that we can select or deselect. Now, by default, each metric is available to all three analyzers: ribbon, phase, and intersection, so leave them selected. If necessary, metrics can be excluded from a particular analysis. Next, we have the option to include in new workbook. Generally, leave this option selected to include the metric in all new workbooks. Lastly, there is the option to publish metrics. When it is selected, the metric will be included in the Fuse Metric Summary report. You can leave it selected. Just below these metric options, you'll see 6 tabs: Primary Formula, Secondary Formula, Tripwire Formula, Tripwire Thresholds, Define Columns, and Detailed Report. As discussed earlier, the primary, secondary, and tripwire formulas and tripwire thresholds tab are used to create a metric. The Define Columns tab allows you to customize the visible columns in the Activity Browser pane when you click on a metric in the S2 Diagnostics view. In the Detailed Report tab, you can specify if you want a tripped metric to display as an X or as a specific field value when you publish the report to Excel. leave the radio button for Count X selected. Let's look at the first 4 tabs in order. Select the Primary Formula tab. In the Editor pane, you'll see that we can add inclusions, filters or formula. Firstly, inclusions. These are a top-level set of options that include specific activities based on activity type, such as the normal, milestones, summary, etc. Activity status, such as planned, in progress or complete. Time period, such as starts or finishes in the current time period. Then we have filters. These are standard filters that help to pinpoint specific activities. They would include simple filters that are based on fields such as actual start date or baseline start date, etc. You can add multiple filters using AND conditions, but not OR statements. Next, we have formula. These are user-defined formulas, such as math functions, and can make use of AND, OR statements, division, or other advanced functions. Now in the formula pane, we have radio buttons where we can select whether the metric is basic or advanced. In general, a basic metric is a count of activities and is defined by only inclusions and filters. An advanced metric uses advanced mathematical functions and is defined with a combination of inclusions, filters, and a formula. Now click on the tab for secondary formula. In the tab itself, there is a checkbox that allows you to turn the secondary formula on or off, depending on the metric complexity. Again, we have panes for inclusion, filters, and formulas, so the layout is similar to that of the primary formula. However, on the right of inclusions and formulas, there is a button where we can copy from primary formula. We would click this button to ensure that inclusions in the secondary formula are the same as in the primary formula. Now, if you look at the formula pane, you will see 2 radio buttons, percentage of primary formula and advanced. This is where you can define a basic or advanced metric formula, and this will be discussed a little later. Next, click on the tab for tripwire formula. In the tab itself, there is a checkbox that allows you to turn the tripwire formula on or off, depending on the metric complexity. Once again, we have panes for inclusions, filters, and formulas, and the layout is similar to that of primary and secondary formulas. Now, if you look at the formula pane, you will see 2 radio buttons, auto-calculated by primary formula and advanced. Again, these settings will be made depending on whether the metric is basic or advanced. However, you must remember the following. If the primary formula is set to advanced, then the radio button for auto-calculated by primary formula will not be available as an option. In other words, we already have an advanced metric. Lastly, click on the Tripwire Thresholds tab. This is where the number of threshold levels, names, colors, values, and descriptions are set. Now, as an example, click on Missing Logic in the Metrics pane. You'll see 4 levels of color scale have been defined. We won't change any of the current color thresholds. So by using colors in the tripwire threshold, we immediately have a visual indication of our results and how they are trending. To edit any of the threshold levels, select the desired level and then edit the name, value, or description. To edit the threshold colors, select the level and choose a new color from the drop-down in the color palette in the menu. Now let's look at colors and boundaries. We have criteria descriptions and values to the right of all the colors. Each description will provide a value range for each color. Now the colors have 2 modes, discrete or gradient. In the discrete mode, colors are not blended and change from one color to another once the next limit is reached. In the gradient mode, you'll be able to see if results are trending close to a threshold as the colors blend together. You can toggle between discrete and gradient modes by selecting the gradient button. So, You can specify discrete or gradient boundaries between the colors. Now for new metrics, where tripwire thresholds have not already been set up, we can use the color scales pull-down. There are 3 predefined settings: lowest is better, highest is better, and ideal value. Within each of these predefined settings, we can select different intervals. Usually, we would select the level that works best for the new metric, and levels, colors, and values will be automatically set up. Now, how do we add a new level into our tripwire thresholds? We just click New in the tripwire thresholds group. If a level is not required, we can highlight it and click Delete on the menu bar. The number of levels, colors, and threshold settings will normally be determined by your organization. Now, we don't want to save any of our changes, so click on the fuse icon at the top left and choose Close. This will close all the windows and tabs. Click the Metrics tab again. So how do we determine whether a metric is basic or advanced? Firstly, let's look at the primary formula. For a basic metric, the primary formula must be a simple count that can be defined using inclusions and filters. For an advanced metric, the primary formula will be defined using inclusions, filters, and Excel array syntax. Next, we will examine the secondary formula. For a basic metric, the secondary formula must be defined as a percentage of the primary formula. For an advanced metric, the secondary formula will be defined using Excel array syntax. Thirdly, look at the tripwire formula. Now, tripwire formulas return a list of activities in the activity browser. For a basic metric, the calculated list of activities in the activity browser are automatically generated using auto-calculated by primary formula. For an advanced metric, the calculated list of activities in the activity browser are defined using Excel array syntax with and/or statements. Lastly, for basic and advanced metrics, the tripwire thresholds are displayed in the same way. In the next lesson, we will learn how to work with metrics and define our own basic metrics.